Let's talk about spiritual communities, and let's ask ourselves the question, do all spiritual communities end up becoming cults, right? Huh. Good question, because I was in a spiritual community for 10, 13, 14 years, and I got a lot out of it. There were some problems as well. So if you've heard of the Triple Gem of Buddhism, then you'll know a little bit what that might mean, because the Triple Gem, three things. It's the power of the teacher or the enlightened mind. It's the dharma, so the teachings, and it's the sangha, which is the community. So the Buddha spoke about the power of sangha, the power of community. Now, I'm not a Buddhist, and I don't particularly follow any tradition in particular, but it's very interesting to note that basically the Buddha taught that without the sangha, the dharma remains completely abstract philosophy. So that means that without the community, without having spiritual brothers and sisters to talk to work with, to uphold something collectively, then it's just a mental or an emotional exercise. And I'm sure if you're a spiritual person and you're serious about your spiritual development, I don't have to tell you how hard it is to do this on your own. It's tough, right? And you may have people in your direct environment, you may have people really close to you that have no idea you are interested in spiritual stuff. And then being a spiritual seeker, you also have to be a spiritual warrior, because if those people around you don't support you, then you have to really stand on your own. It's hard, and it becomes way easier when you can come together with others. There's a collective awareness, there's a collective field of shared consciousness. You can uphold each other to higher values, you can support each other. And you know how it works, right? What you put your focus on is what you get more of. So when other people are around you and you can spend more time focusing on something higher, focusing on spirit, focusing on your connection with God, it's so much easier to uphold this. So since a young age, I was very interested, very passionate about trying to understand, like, what are we doing here? Nothing made sense to me in school. Didn't make any sense. It was all very painful. Growing up with a crazy mother was challenging. And then I tried to get a job. Forget it. I thought, why are we doing this stuff? It's just so painful. It's so difficult. And I wanted to understand, who am I? Why am I here? So I really was looking, really was searching. And I was fortunate enough to find a real life enlightenment teacher, and even more fortunate to discover that he had a community, a worldwide community. So I ended up joining the community, and I ended up really committing my life to spiritual growth and being part of this community. On one hand, was tough. It was hard because I was with a group of people that were really serious about spirituality and finding truth and expressing truth. And in everything, not just in the Friday night meditation sessions or retreats, but in every day. So the lot was kind of asked of me, but it was what I wanted. It's what I signed up for, right? I signed up for that. And it afforded me the platform to actually change, become a different person. And I don't think I would have been able to do that on my own. It's so hard to find the discipline, the courage, the consistency to get up every day and do practice and do meditation or yoga or whatever it is that you do. It's easy when it's easy, right? But when it's hard, that's when it counts. So the benefit of doing this kind of stuff with other people is that you are beholden to others because you have brothers and sisters and you are on a mission. So it's a beautiful thing. So that's very powerful, right? The shared commitment, the shared goals, the support, the shared focus, the shared consciousness, which is a very real thing. There's this field, and you can step into it. And I'm sure you might have experienced this when you've been on workshops or meditation retreats or anything similar. You might, hopefully, you know a little bit what I'm talking about. That's a real thing, and it lifts you up. But there's a dark side to all of this, which I think that it's good to talk about, because even though in our community we endeavored to kind of go beyond any form of dominator hierarchy, there was some form of hierarchy, because you have people in the community that were there earlier. They were with the teacher, like from the beginning, and they were more developed because they had another 10 years or 20 years. And that's real. And like on one hand, that's a cool thing. That's because you like see what it looks like. You can see what it actually looks like. The people that you get to hang out with or spend time with, how they live their lives, how they are with you, how they approach you, how they do everything, who have been putting in real time and effort into their lives, into their practice, into their commitment. You can actually see that, oh shit, it looks like something. This isn't just an exterior. These aren't just words. These aren't just an idea. This isn't just a concept. Oh man, these people really are somewhere. And incredible. So there was a hierarchy in the organization that I was with. And a lot of the time, that was healthy. It's like some people to look up to. How often do we have people to look up to in our culture, right? People that are really out there taking a stand. I think that there we are in a desert in that respect in our culture. People that will stand up for truth, for spirituality, for higher values. We don't have to look to our politicians. There's very few leaders that we can look to that we're inspired by. In fact, it's the opposite, isn't it? We're just like disappointed. Like, why should I vote? Why do I put my energy? Why should I put my life force energy towards this person? Because, these people are corrupt. They're honeypotted. They are leading us astray. So we are in a deficit of strong leadership, standout leadership that we can stand behind, get behind, and see as an example. So we don't have that. So I had those people, and it was amazing. Now the downside of this, right, is that even though we endeavored to find out in our community and struggle to work to go beyond the ego and to build beyond the ego and to do everything that we could in a higher form, ego's going to get into everything. Like, that's ego's job. Ego's job is to survive. So it will sneak into any situation, any organization, any moment that it can. So then what happened was, of course, that ego inverts. So then there was a forced expressions of ego within that hierarchy. And when you have that within a community, so let's focus in on the pathological side of what happens in any kind of spiritual community, right? Now, if you've watched Wild Wild West on Netflix, you might have seen the stories of Osho's community, right? So Bhagwan's community that he set up. So if you haven't watched it, it's a lot of fun. It's a crazy ride. It's an incredible story. So the region that I was in was, and it wasn't out of control like that, but it still had big problems. And the problems were that you have this groupthink, right? And that groupthink is a little bit Hotel California. You can check in anytime you like. You can never leave. It's difficult to leave a spiritual context. It really is. Even one that's trying hard to be good and wholesome, because when you're in this higher space, you really feel like you're doing something good and wholesome. And a lot of the time you are. But then because you really feel and you have this little bit of an echo chamber, maybe you see yourselves and everybody else, your brothers and sisters, as pushing something forward and upholding something. And you look around and you don't see it somewhere else. You get this misconception that you're the only ones doing it. So that you're the only ones upholding these higher spiritual values. And then what happens is it becomes more difficult to have an opinion which is outside of this group thing. So on one hand, you are lifted up, and it really is true. On the other hand, it's difficult to have opinions and ideas outside of this group thing. And if you've had enough of this whole situation, it's also tough to leave. It really is. And I think that this is, I've looked into other spiritual communities and just out of interest, like how does it work there? And whether that is the Hasidic Jewish community or the Amish community or other spiritual communities, like wholesome spiritual communities, whatever you think of them, however good they are or however problematic they are, it's tough to leave. It's really hard to leave. So what would be commonplace in our community is that people would sort of just disappear in the middle of the night. Right? And that was a weird thing. People would just go, people that were your brothers or sisters or people that you looked up to, you just find out the next day, like, oh yeah, their room was empty and they had gone. And it felt very, very weird. As you can imagine. So, and what happened with my spiritual community in the end for me was that it was very peculiar that I had I got demoted by my teacher. I got sort of put down a couple of levels, and I wasn't very happy about that because I'd been really trying my best to move beyond ego and to express something true and real and authentic. And I was a bit pissed off with this. And it felt like just a few days later, this organization that had been going for maybe 25 years, suddenly it just dissipated and fell apart. It's a very peculiar thing. We had a very strong leader, and there had been some kind of rebellion, and somehow a whole structure of this worldwide organization with hundreds and hundreds of people that were really committed started to crumble and fall apart. And for me, it happened to be, curiously, at the right moment. And I was just able to kind of just somehow walk out the door without without being challenged, without losing any kind of face, without losing any dignity. And it was supremely fortuitous for me. I was very, very lucky that I could just kind of exit stage left, if you were, and continue about my journey. So I was lucky. It's not easy for anybody who's in a spiritual community or any kind of community and wants to leave, because other people will pull you back in. And you can argue the pros and cons of that, but it's the truth. And so looking back at my time, I was with this community for many, many years. I got a lot out of it. Now, many of the people that stood next to me and worked next to me, fought next to me, my brothers and sisters in this community, afterwards were very critical of our teacher and the things that we got up to and things that we did, because they felt that there was too much. I have to laugh about this, dude. That's funny to me. They felt there was too much pressure put on them, that there was too much expected of them. And so when everything sort of ended, a lot of people complained. They were victims. And peculiar to me, because our teacher was very clear about what we were signing up to, because he said, if you want to work with me, you have to want to be free more than anything else. I'm going to ask a lot of you. So he didn't pull people in under false pretenses. He was straight up. He says, I was sitting next to a friend of mine, and let's call my friend Robert. So this guy's sitting right next to me, and we're having this, early stages, sort of get to know my teacher. And my teacher said to him, Robert, do you really want this? Are you sure? Because this is basically jumping into the mouth of a volcano. You come and work with me. This isn't placatory spirituality. This is the real deal. You are jumping into the mouth of a volcano. So, right? And my friend Robert said, I want this, right? And, but later he would go on to sort of leave and also complain. I know that he complained about our teacher. He complained also about me, how I behaved, and um, maybe he did have some justification to his complaints. Maybe our teacher was tough. But real spiritual change, real development, real transcendence, you don't get that just by going and having a nice hug session or, doing some ayahuasca. You've got to really challenge your shadow side and get somewhere. And that takes work and that takes effort. So I got so much out of my spiritual community. So if if you're a spiritual person, you say, hey, I feel alone, then I would absolutely recommend getting together with other people and look for people that will not only support you, but will challenge you, that will say, hey, I'm doing my practice at 5 a.m. this morning. What about you? And not in a superior way, but like, we don't have any challenge in this in our society. Everything's just easy and comfortable, right? So you've got to look for people that will lift you up, will challenge you. And they will be out there. I can't particularly point to anybody in particular. The community that I with, unfortunately, doesn't exist anymore. That just happened to be a moment in time that I was supremely fortunate to be involved with. But what I can guarantee you is, if you do want to be free, if you do want real spiritual development and you are looking for a community, you will find it. It will be out there for you because the universe supports your growth. Fundamentally, God, spirit, universe supports your growth because the nature of universe itself is to grow and evolve and to go further. And there's no ceiling on that growth. So my experience has been that the universe has always supported me, finding a teacher, finding answers to my questions, going further, going further, going further. So look, and you will find it. Now, having said all that, I am super interested in supporting and helping people in this way, and I will be putting together a group, a supportive group, a teaching group in some way. So if you want to be notified when I do that, check out the link in the description below. So you're going to stay updated. And if you are interested in anything I spoke about, engage with me. Don't just passively watch this video. Leave me a comment, ask me a question, and I'll get back to you. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? Are you interested in spiritual community? Are you in a spiritual community? Have you had experiences with spiritual community? What do you want to say about it? I'd love to hear from you.